Hello and welcome to part 2 of my tutorial video on how to install and modify your Strike Fighters 2 game. I covered a lot in the original video, but I came up with a few more points that I want to talk about. First off, I want to make a correction. Just days after I put up that first video, thirdwire.com store came back online. I found it when I went there to click on some links. I had said in the first video that it looked like they had abandoned the game and were no longer selling it, and it was no longer available from them. Well, it turns out that's not the case, but that's okay because that just means that if you want to pick up the game directly from them and send a few ducats their way, that's one of the options that you have now, so keep that in mind. Okay, last time I demonstrated what is known as the merged install. That's where all of your mods are in one place, dropped into the main Strike Fighters 2 mod folder. This is a nice setup because you have all of your content in one place, you only have to start one game. However, there is a second method that you may want to use, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate here today. If you have a situation where you want to use large mods, and you want to avoid them overwriting each other, and maybe losing textures that you have set up, or changing the data for different aircraft, or if you just want less clutter in the main game, maybe you're more OCD oriented and you like things a little bit cleaner, you can make a dedicated mod folder. In fact, many of the large mods that are out there often recommend creating a dedicated folder, so let's look at how to do that now. Okay, strap in, you ready for this? First off, let's review where our mod folders are. In Windows 7, if you go under the Start menu, up to your User folder, you arrive here. This is where all of your music, pictures, videos, assorted other sundries are. You've got the Saved Games file. In later versions of Windows, you can do a search for this folder under the Start menu search bar. So we open up Saved Games. Here's Thirdwire. Here's all of our mod folders. Now, like I showed you before, here's the main game, Strike Fighters 2 mod folder, which has all of my stuff in it. This is a merged install. But we have these other ones that are either empty or just have like nothing at all in them, really. So what I'm going to do today is going to be to show you how to add a new mod folder, which will go in this file, and then we're going to put a mod, a big mod, in it, which will then be a standalone that you can then open and play as its own individual game. So the first thing we're going to want to do is to download a mod of your choice, like a large campaign mod. In this case, I've downloaded the Operation Desert Storm mod, which is a 3-part mod and requires its own dedicated folder. So this is the perfect thing to show you what we're going to do today. After you download your files, however many parts it is, in this case it's 3. As I showed you before, we're going to do the 7-zip, which if you have not downloaded, the link for that is in the first video. I'm right-clicking on that to bring this up, and I'm going to extract to part 1. Alright, and part 1 has been decompressed, and we've got some stuff in there ready to go. Now we want to repeat the process for all of the remaining parts. In this case, 2 more parts for this mod, so highlight part number 2, I'm going to right-click, go to 7-zip, and now we're going to extract to this SFODS part 2 and let that do its thing for a moment. And then repeat a 3rd time for part 3. Highlight, right-click, 7-zip, extract to part 3. Okay, that's everything unpacked and ready to go. So let's go to part 1, which is where we want to start. We've got a README. As I said before, looking at READMEs is super important because it'll often spell out exactly what you need to do step by step in order to install the mod. So here we take a look at this one, and we see step 1, prepare the mod folder. Now this is in words exactly what I'm going to show you on the screen here in a minute. So, but this mod specifically requires a separate mod folder. Please do not attempt to install this mod over or combine it with other mods such as NATO Fighter, blah, 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 blah. Several big mods have this disclaimer. And then it's going to tell us what to do. So let's start with that, because we've got this content now ready to go, and we have nowhere to put it yet. Here's our mod folders. We could potentially put it in Strike Fighters 2, but I don't want to overwrite anything that I already have there. We can see here that this mod is specifically designed to be installed into Strike Fighters 2 Europe installation, or merged installs incorporating Strike Fighters 2 Europe, and that are patched to the appropriate March 2012 level, etc., etc. So this is important because that tells us which game we want to make a clone of in order to make this new mod folder. And I'll show you what I'm talking about now. We need to go to our third wire, our actual third wire folder, the main folder. So I'm going to go to Start, Computer. Mine is under Games, but yours may be under Program Files 86. That's a common place. But you want to find this third wire folder, which is here, Strike Fighters 2. And this is where all of our executables are. So here's Strike Fighters 2 Europe, and here's an INI file for it. So here is what I want to do. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to do a copy. And then let's just put it in here. I also want to go and make a copy of this INI file. So I'm going to copy, and I'm just going to put the copy down there. We now are going to rename these. So I'm going to left click once on the title, and that brings up this highlight. And I'm now going to change this to, not Persian Gulf, what's this called? Desert Storm. Desert Storm. So you can name it whatever you want. Doesn't really matter, but name it something that you're going to know what it is when you're looking for it in the future. So after typing that in, left click off of it. Now it is renamed. We're also going to do that here. I'm going to change this to Desert Strom.ini. Okay, and after we rename them, I'm going to highlight them both and move them back into, there we go, back into our main Strike Fighters folder up here. Now we're going to run the executable. Alright, here we go. We are on the Strike Fighters 2 Europe main screen. The splash screen's in the background. There is no saved games or anything in here since I haven't done it. This is all we need to do. Now we're going to exit. Okay, that's all we had to do, was just to run it, and now it's initialized itself. And then if we come over here, we can see that Strike Fighters 2 Desert Storm has created its own mod folder. Again, this is in the saved games folder. Let's just go back real quick, just to remind you. This is the saved games folder, third wire, and all of our mod folders. Desert Storm has now appeared, and if we look in it, it's got some of these empty folders ready to take the mod. So we can get rid of this guy for now. And now we can start loading the mod files into the actual mod folder itself. So we go to To Mod Folder. All this stuff. Like I said before, you could either do a cut and paste, or I'm going to do a copy and paste and start moving all this stuff into the new folder. Now this is going to take a few moments. Now this stuff's going to come up. Do you want to merge folders? Yes, we're going to want to merge all folders. And if it comes up, we're going to overwrite any files that it wants to do as well. So we're going to refer back to our README to see what order we need to install stuff in. So we've unpacked the archive packages to the temporary location. We're moving the contents to the mod folder from all three unzip packages. So we're going to do that first for all three of the new files. Also, note that it actually gives us a note here. Do not simply drag and drop the folder name to mod folder, or you will end up with a non-working install. It wants us to make sure that we go into the mod folder and actually move all of these individual folders, like controls, mission, objects, campaigns, because if you don't, if you just move the single file called to mod folder, it's not going to work because it's not going to put the correct things where it's supposed to go. Okay, and as I said before, we want to copy and replace any files that come up, so do this for the next 53 conflicts. Copy and replace. There we go, and we can see the highlighted folders are the ones that have moved over from here. So now we go to part 2, because that's what our README told us to do. So to mod folder, and now here's objects. Usually the first part of a mod is all of the missions, campaigns, effects, textures, and maybe some objects, and usually the rest of the parts are aircraft. And that we can see that's the case here. There's a couple of F-14s, F-5, all sorts of stuff. Usually they're in alphabetical order. So we want to go to mod folder. Here we go. So objects, because we want this folder to match up with what we see here. So objects, I'm going to copy, paste. Do I want to merge objects with objects? Yes, I do. We have another 1.65 gigs to move over. So yes, we want to merge all folders that already exist. And I want to copy and replace previous files. Okay, one more part. Part 3, to mod folder. Here's objects. Again, objects matches up with objects, so we know we're at the right level. Copy, put it right over here, paste, and I want to merge. Same thing again. Yet again, do all for current items. We want to merge these folders, and we want to overwrite anything that comes up. Now this is why it's very important to do things in the order specified by the README or by the part numbers, because things that are in later part numbers are overwriting previous information. So if you were to install, say, the aircraft from part 2 after you installed part 3, if you did it in a backwards order, then you would end up with the wrong information in the files, potentially. Copy and replace. Okay, so there we go. That does it for the 3 parts. So I'm going to go back to part 1. We're going to look again at our README file. So we have moved everything correctly. So now we're on to step 3. We have to edit the options INI file. The text here says, this last step involves a bit of text editing, so please pay attention. But this is not hard. So here in the mod folder, in the game mod folder, we see our options INI. Open that sucker up. And it should come up in Notepad. If it doesn't, you can do a right click, and then you can do an open with Notepad or WordPad or some other program that you prefer. But usually you just open them in Notepad and it gets the job done. Oh, now it won't go away. Okay, so options is open. Locate the instant action section and replace it with the following. So scroll down here, scroll down. Instant action. Here it is. We're going to replace it with what's here. So I'm going to do a copy. I'm going to do a paste. Oops. And then we want that spacing. Just below the instant action section is the single mission section, which, yes, here it is. At minimum, you should change the end year statement to 92 or higher. So start year 90 and year 92. That is, here we go, 1990, 1992, right? Start year. end year, start year, end year. Finally, a little further down, you should find the campaign section. Replace it with the following. So again, I'm going to highlight. I'm going to copy with Control C. Here's that campaign. So I'm going to paste with Control V. And then get that spacing correct. Okay, save your changes and close the INI file. So we're going to do that. Let's save it. And then we can close it. Okay, so that's step 3. Now, step 4, extra step for Strike Fighters 2 North Atlantic users, which I am. I have that, so I need to follow this last step. This last step is for those whose install base includes Strike Fighters 2 North Atlantic. Included with this mod are a number of custom files that allow North Atlantic users to enjoy some of the new functionality included with North Atlantic, including some F-14 cockpits, the battle groups, some other stuff. So, to install, drag and drop the contents of 4 SF2NA into your mod folder, allowing Windows to merge and overwrite any folders and files it prompts to. And then, so after we do that, that's it. Operation Desert Storm for SF2 should now be ready for use. You may consider installing some of the optional items as described in the next section. So let's put that away. We're back into our Part 1 folder here. This is the file for SF2NA. Campaigns, Objects, and Terrains. Those are familiar folders, so we'll copy those. And then we'll plunk these in here. Control V does a paste, and then we will do for all current items, and we will merge. Yes. And then hopefully this is the last time that we're doing this. And we're going to copy, replace, do for the next 32 conflicts, copy, replace. And it is complete. If we look back at the README, it outlines the various optional installs that the mod comes with. This includes, so it looks like some Tomcat updates, additional aircraft, an A-10, some Mirage, some notes on anti-ship missiles, a note on laser-guided bombs, a note on the water shader effect, and then it gives a change log of everything that is contained within, followed by credits. So, not going to worry about those right now, but to install those optional things, here we go. Here's the optional folder. Click on that. Here's third wire F-14s, and here's additional aircraft. We have this optional A-10 model and 2 Mirages. Now again, refer to the README very carefully because sometimes you need payware aircraft already that you've gotten elsewhere that these are an update for. In this case, this README says that if you install this A-10, it replaces the stock model and all its features and puts this one in instead. And same thing with these Mirages. It will replace what's already in there. So take a look at what they actually do before you install them, because you may think that you're just getting extra aircraft, but you may either be overriding something that's already there, or you're putting in some textures or files for an aircraft that you don't have because you have to go buy it somewhere. So, so that's my note on that. So that is that. We can get rid of this. Here's our mod folder. Where is our Strike Fighters? Okay, so what we've done, in summary, is we have downloaded a mod. We have unzipped it to a temporary file. We came in here and we created a clone of Strike Fighters 2 Europe, naming it Desert Storm. We ran the exe. It initialized. It made a mod folder. We then took the files of that uncompressed mod and we moved it to the mod folder. So now you can either run the exe from within the third wire folder. We could double click on this to run it, or if you want to put it on, say, your desktop, you can right click. Down here is create shortcut. And now we've got the shortcut. You can put that sucker out here or put it in some sort of games folder or whatever. But now we'll run the game and we'll make sure that the mod has worked correctly. And lo and behold, you can see we've got a new splash screen that they've put in for Operation Desert Storm, a new menu setup. I'm going to go right to options. See all new splash screens behind everything. Let's get rid of that. Thank you very much. Okay, a note. Every time that you open one of these separate games, you have to reset all of your options. Everything will be reset to the normal defaults, including your graphics. So you'll want to go back through all of the options and set things up the way you want them. That includes your control setup and your customized keyboard mapping. So if you have things like I have my speed brakes and some other things set to my joystick, I will have to reallocate all of those here, which is not a big deal. It's just slightly annoying if you forget to do it and then you say jump into a mission or whatever. So there we have it. If we go to campaign, here we go. We've got 1991 Desert Storm, Mother of All Battles. These are the two included here. These other things, these are all from the base game, but you'll see that there's nothing else included that are in any of my other mods. So these are the only two mod things coming up, which are for the Desert Storm, or which is for the Desert Storm mod, which is what I'm looking for. So you could choose stuff, and then you're ready to go. So everything looks good, and then we'll exit out of here. Okay, there we have it. The mod is installed, and it's in its own folder, and it can be played and can be modded independently of any of the other games. So that's kind of the nice thing. If you have, say, certain textures that you want to add to just a specific mod but not others, you can now drop it in that way. Oh, that reminds me. Some universal mods will not have moved over. Stuff that I'm used to having in my main folder is now not in Desert Storm, so we may want to pop them in. For example, I have here the modified AWACS voice, because I don't like the stock Hawkeye, the way the stock Hawkeye sounds, so I'm going to copy that sucker, and alright, this one we'll have to put in a new folder called Speech. And now Speech USN is in there. Another one that I have that I like here is the Yankee Air Pirates Enterprise. Okay, so we would put that under ground object, copy, and move that sucker in. In real life, the real Enterprise didn't participate in Operation Desert Storm, but now it's in the folder, so if I wanted to, say, add it to scenarios, I could. But my point is, any sort of additional mods or textures or objects that you want, you'll have to re-add to the specific mod folder. So just keep that in mind. Okay, I think that pretty much covers everything. I hope everything made sense, and I hope you're able to follow along. It's maybe seems a little confusing, but really it's not. There's just a lot of back and forth between the different file folders, but once you do it once or twice, it becomes really easy. You kind of know where things are supposed to go, and they look familiar. And you can just keep doing this. You can just keep adding all the mod folders you want, just keeping in mind that once you start them, you then have to reset all of your options, etc., etc. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this one. I hope this was helpful to a lot of people. It seems like the first one was helpful too. So I hope this further clarifies and gives you some more choices for modifying your Strike Fighters 2 game. Once again, if you have additional comments or questions, post them down below, and either I can answer them or maybe somebody else who knows better than I can chime in. Hopefully this sets you on the path. You can get out there and start downloading all the mods you want and play any of the million of crazy campaigns that are out there for download. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you back here very soon.